What was the thought process?
You have to do it right hundreds of times. I've been in the trade since 2015. Well, Bubba, I can start you at $9 an hour. And I said, well, how about 10? So I started at $10 an hour.
Is that something that you would recommend to someone that's considering diving into the trades?
You gotta have a little bit of empathy. You have to have intelligence. You have to have pure grit and determination. If your job is based on processes and information, your job's gone. And the interviewer asked, well, are there gonna be any jobs that are safe? And without even thinking about it, he said plumbers.
Have you ever heard of the Lindy Effect? If a business has been around for 50 plus years, it's infinitely more likely to be around for another 50.
The more experienced a plumber is, the less money they make. How much work I'm doing. Sorry if you saw my cat's anus there.
Hold up.
And, I'll watch videos from Boston Dynamics where the robot's like on the job site and it's bringing the guy his stuff and doing a backflip. And I'm just like, A, that's an OSHA violation. B, I don't recall the last time that I've ever needed to do a backflip on a job site. Hey, these prices are a little high. And it said to me, are you sure these prices are high or are you just in your feelings? And I was just like blind with rage. I was like, what did you say to me, robot?
Hey guys, before we jump into today's episode, I wonder if you could do me a super quick favor. So most of the people that watch our videos are not actually subscribed to our YouTube channel. So if you can take 2 seconds, go down below, hit the like button, hit subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me, to our team behind the scenes who put in an immense amount of effort to make these episodes what they are, and also to our guests who take a chunk out of their day to come on here, talk with me, and share their knowledge, stories, experience, and game with you guys in an effort to make you and your businesses more successful as well. Also, for those of you guys that are home service business owners and you're struggling with the marketing and lead generation department in your business and you feel like that's something that's holding you back from growing to the levels that you want to, that is the problem that we solve at TradeOps Consulting. So we have a full suite of marketing services, everything from A to Z, whether it be website design, SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, you name it. We do it. We also build automations and systems that help you guys make the most out of your marketing as well. At the moment, about 80% of our business comes from word of mouth referrals. That is business owners and contractors just like you telling their friends and other business owners about the great experience that they had with us. And so that is the reputation that we have spent 6 years building here doing marketing for the trades. If you guys need help with stuff like that, click the first link in the description below. Book a call in with me. We'll take a look at your business, peek under the hood, see what's going on. If there's anything that we can do to help you guys fix it, we can lay out a path for what that would look like, taking our systems and putting them into your business. So if that's something you're interested in, book a call with the first link in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Let's get to it. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the TradeOps Radio podcast. Today, I'm joined by our guest, Eric. Eric, if you want to take a second, introduce yourself, kind of tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and kind of what your journey through the trades has been, everything from getting started up to like the present day.
Yeah, for sure.
Just get us familiar.
My name is Eric Turner. I own Turner Signature Plumbing, a small outfit out of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a licensed master plumber. I've been in the trade since 2015. It was kind of a non-traditional path into the trades. I really don't know what a traditional path into the trades is. So I was, in my early 20s, certified educator. I was a licensed English and special education teacher. And in 2000 and, pretty much 2011 to 2014, it was tough to secure a job full time. There were some, economic troubles back then, and people were sort of scared to leave their jobs. And it was difficult to really break into a school. So essentially I was taking positions like year to year. And I was, I came to realize I was sort of a placeholder, because, in education or corporate America or many places, there's a lot of nepotism involved. So if you don't know somebody or you don't, you don't have that networking, it's kind of hard to secure a job in those realms. So pretty much every year I would take a job, laboring, like retail at Home Depot or landscaping one year. I joined the Carpenters Union one summer and did carpentry. So then the next summer I sort of realized like I should probably really invest in a trade. And to me, it seemed that like carpentry, for instance, I could easily be overtaken by day laborers. Um, you know, uh, people that are everyone needs to make money. And I started would kind of look and realize like, okay, well, electricians or plumbers, it seems as though that would be a better fit for me, uh, just because I was just doing some research online, and then I kind of narrowed it to you know again thinking back to my difficulties in getting a job in education. I was like, well, what's something that's recession proof? And the top of the thing, it said plumbers. And I was like, okay. And at that point, I read an article from the then CEO of Rigid Tools, who said that essentially in the future, plumbers will be able to write their own check. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty good too. Um, I opened the phone book, found in there, and this was in Columbus, Georgia, Ace Plumbing Company. Their logo was the Ace of Spades. It was pretty badass. I went in there, and said, "Hey, I've got a little bit of construction experience, job site experience. I'm, I said I had a bachelor's degree as though that meant anything to the dude, which it didn't. And I was like, the most important part was that I had a clean driver's license and no record, So, you know, he said, well, Bubba, I can start you at $9 an hour. And I said, well, how about 10? And, he did, and I took it. So I started at $10 an hour. So that was essentially how I got into it. Uh,
Gotcha. What was the thought process between jumping around from like the carpentry to some of the other things? It seems like you kind of like, you sampled a couple things, got your
right.
feet wet with it, and it's like I'm sure all of those skills still translate very much to plumbing, and there's like probably little things you took from each of them that are
Sure.
still helping you today.
Yeah.
So, is that something that you would recommend to someone that's considering uh you know, diving into the trades regardless of industries, like, try them, like do a little landscaping, do a little carpentry, do a little roofing or
Yeah, for
whatever,
sure.
and
I
just
mean, for
kind of
sure.
like feel it out.
I mean, for sure. Because, when you're cutting like a lawn at like, some crazy grade, in the dead of summer, and it's like the grass is like 8 inches long, you're going to learn a little bit of determination, and a little bit of perseverance. With carpentry, that was great. I did, so being in the union, you would go take these classes and learn how to assemble scaffolding. You would learn how to, do trim work. You would know how to frame out. You would know how to pour concrete, get ready for concrete by building forms. So that sort of experience just introduced me to, you know, um, like the kind of physicality that's needed in plumbing, which is with trim carpentry, it's fairly delicate and light work essentially, versus building scaffolding or anything like that, where it requires a little bit more brute strength. Um, so, and then of course working in retail and working in schools and dealing with people, both from the you know service provider standpoint and from a co-working standpoint, you have to know how to talk to every level of person, to someone that is, that you're trying to sell something to, how to talk to someone that you're training or helping, grow, to someone that is, above you in some way. You have to know how to talk and interact with all of those different people. So yeah, I mean that it's a wide ranging skill set. And it's pretty rare for me actually to meet someone that was born into the trades. Like they're like a second or third generation plumber. They've been doing it since they were 8. Those guys are just absolute demon plumbers. But they may be kind of lack in some of the other um, ways that I feel are necessary for good interpersonal communication and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So I think that having a wide ranging background is certainly very, very helpful. Necessary, no. You know, if there's all kinds of plumbing where you don't have to interact with people, and you can be, as surly as you want to be, or as surly as you are, or where, and it's not uh, as important that you're well kept and well spoken.
Sure. Yeah, I think that the the trades is a unique opportunity in that regard where it's like it kind of is inviting to people of all different backgrounds, and other than the one thing that is common, which is the skill of the trade itself, any other background experience outside of that in any category, whether it be, people skills, sales, marketing, or just like having the patience to, like you said, do a little bit of the politicking, or, dealing with mixed personalities, and, people of all, sizes, shapes, colors, walks of life, however you want to cut it. That's a skill in and of itself that all of those things translate in, when you start your business and you get into it, you'll probably pretty quickly realize where maybe you're a little underdeveloped across all of those on the spectrum somewhere. Um, and you'll figure out where you kind of need to get caught up to speed on those. Couple things you mentioned that are definitely, I think, on point, and maybe we should dig a little deeper into. Was you said that you were looking at some other opportunity. It sounds like mainly out of wanting to just have a little control over your own destiny. Am I right in
Oh,
saying that? Where
yeah,
it's
I mean,
like,
absolutely. So, I mean, believe me, after, it was not fun, you know, um, starting plumbing as an apprentice, especially in Columbus, Georgia, where I'm from, where, socioeconomically, maybe people aren't doing the best. So now we're talking about, okay, we're just going to repair this. We're going to repair this issue that they've let go for months. We're in crawl spaces. It's moldy. There's shit everywhere. It's just disgusting. The floor's caving in, and I'm like, why are we even in this house? So that was grueling. So when you're an apprentice in these environments, as you said about having some control over your life, you don't feel like you have any control over your life. Um, I feel that I was fortunate in a way because, like, one of the worst days I've had plumbing, and I'm talking like covered in shit from like chest to boots, was my first day of plumbing. And I
wow,
and I was working with
right
this
into the thick of
yeah.
it.
I was working with this dude named Dennis, whose body has fully been broken by this trade. And so, I go home and I'm like, I've I've got to make a decision. Because in my mind, like, every day is going to be like this. Like, every day is going to be like this. Um, but I kind of buckled down and thought about Dennis, and I was like, that dude needs my help. I mean, that dude needs my help, like, for sure. So I went back the second day. Um, and believe you me, I almost did not go back that second day because, again, in my mind, like, I'm going to be covered in shit every single day for the rest of my life. And fortunately, that's not been the case. It's probably like my third worst day in the trade at this point. So as far as like that agency and control, and when you don't know anything, like, not only are you getting covered in shit, but now there's like, you know, Dennis is yelling at me, or I go work with another crew, somewhere else at some other company, and now there's a meth head yelling at me, and I'm like, okay, well, this is a very interesting of cross people to be yelled at by, and you get demeaned and humiliated, um, and in a way, you kind of have to have your spirit broken, you know, to then learn what control of your life looks like. But yeah, I'm glad I stuck it out after that day. And I'm glad that I just dealt with I mean, when you're an apprentice, the entire universe is abusing you. Like the entire, like, there are so many moments you were just like, why am I even here? And it was getting particularly grueling. Uh, and about, I would say 2 years into it, I went to Walmart to get some medicine for my kid. She was like sick. It was late at night. It was like maybe 10, 11. And I was listening to the radio, and they were playing an interview with a guy, and this is like 2016 or 17. And the guy is talking about AI, and he's sort of talking about the things we're seeing today, and it sounded like science fiction. Where he's like, oh, if your job is based on processes and information and integrating information and process, like your job's gone. And I really couldn't understand what the guy was saying. Um, and the interviewer asked, well, are there going to be any jobs that are safe? And without even thinking about it, he said plumbers. He said a plumber can go to your house, see that there's a problem in the wall, cut a hole in the wall, reach into the wall, know exactly what kind of pipe it is, know exactly what the issue is, know exactly how much it's going to cost to fix, know exactly what fittings are going to be needed, all without even looking at the actual problem, just by feel with his hands. And he said that's a level of complexity that AI would not be able to replicate for, like, I think he said like 100 years. So when I heard that, it was just, it was like the hatch closed behind me, and I was like, I'm stuck. If what this man is saying is true about, because I had dreams of being in some maybe corporate environment somewhere, making a lot of money for doing nothing, but when I heard that man say that, I was like, I'm I got to stay in reality here, and I gotta I gotta see this thing through, and even then, plumbers do all right. I mean, back then plumbers were doing all right. Now maybe a little bit more so, but back then, if you could get to that point of ownership, then to me, it was like, well, things will be fine if I can get there. So yeah, that's what uh, uh, to me ultimately control looks like, is knowing that you're in the worst situation, feeling that you're completely out of control, but still being able to maintain presence of mind and determination, essentially.
100%. 100%. Have you ever heard of the Lindy Effect?
I have not.
It's basically a concept or philosophy, if you will, that if a business or if a category of business has been around for 50 plus years, it's infinitely more likely to be around for another 50. So when we start having the conversation about AI and all of these other things, and you look at places that are A, safe, or if you're someone that is young or old and thinking about a career or a business or something, and let's say you're even just a little bit financially motivated, the way that I see it, and this is just my personal take, is like you have two paths if you're looking at like the biggest, you know, juice that's worth squeezing. It's like you can either go full bore into the AI realm and like lean into that direction, and the pros and cons there is it's the gold rush, bro. Like one in a million people will make the app, will have the startup, will do the thing, will have the tech that is going to create wealth probably beyond what you're even thinking is even possible. Like whatever you think the big number is, add a couple of zeros, and it's like that's what AI startups are getting evaluated at right now. The con is that you're competing with all of the smartest money in the world and the most like brilliant people on the planet. Like, so if that's the route you want to go, like, absolutely, like, take your crack at it for sure. The flip side is like going as far away from that world as possible and maybe bridging the gap between the two of them. So like integrating some of the AI tech and the
Yeah.
stuff that like the average plumber like has no clue what AI is capable of. And so it's like I think the equal opposite opportunity that maybe even feels more tangible to some people is, go the farthest direction away from where AI is and where it's headed, and then figure out how to pull it back and make those two work together.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So my apprentice, is actually, and we worked together at a couple of other companies, or one other company we worked at together, and he's a computer science graduate from Georgia Tech. So that's not something that is unfamiliar to me. So yeah, we're definitely looking at ways to integrate AI. I myself have a little bit of programming experience, so yeah, we're definitely looking into how we can best integrate AI into my company. I mean, we're talking about this, but like after this podcast is done, I've got to go organize my van. I got to organize my van first before I really start, looking into the
Yeah.
structure of that. It's definitely, again, I'm a small company. The phone's been ringing pretty steadily. There have been definitely some days where like an AI dispatcher or voice assistant would have come in handy. And I've heard about the ways that AI is being implemented at larger companies, and I'm not necessarily, sure that I want to go in those directions. But as far as just creating some kind of AI um, command tree where I can upload I take a picture of every receipt and then you can get AI to batch upload them into your QuickBooks, and then QuickBooks, via its own AI is going to assign those receipts to every transaction. So things like that, the super boring stuff going into the weeds of the actual business side of it, all that can be automated. Even to the extent where you can have, and I've tried out some AI like voice assistants that are good. I put them through the ringer kind of where I'm like, hey, what's the problem? And I tell it, oh, I've got this leak. It can kind of wait. And then I'm like, do you give quotes over the phone? And the AI is like, no. So yeah, definitely the AI would be helpful. And then, it will schedule an appointment, and then it will move that appointment into House Call Pro, which is what I use as my CRM. And then from there, that directly links to my Google Calendar. So if anyone tries to book me through my website, it's already blocked off if, they've been, and all the stuff that I'm talking about, stuff that I do manually right now, just because I really haven't had time to sit down and look at everything, which is why it's always good to have an apprentice that graduated from Georgia Tech, because, he's researching this stuff and he's looking at how to structure this integration so that one day soon we can sit down and actually start putting it through its paces and testing it. So yeah, it's just this really weird thing where plumbing is I guess like the second oldest job in the world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Plumbing and prostitution.
that's right. Yeah,
Goes back to the beginning of time.
so
So
pl-
I think you're safe.
yeah, absolutely. But it's at the same time we're it's this really weird thing where it's like anytime people talk about AI, oftentimes they're also mentioning plumbers for some reason. Um, mainly as become a plumber, whatever. But it's just this weird thing where, from the standpoint of general curiosity and interest and fascination, there's a way to combine one of the oldest jobs in the world with one of the absolute newest things on the face of this earth. So it's just really, that to me is interesting and intriguing, and something that I want to explore a little bit more. And yeah, so again, you know, uh, I'm going to call out House Call Pro here. Because when I signed up for it, they kind of assigned someone to call you and look over it with you. And I had just signed up for it, and I'd used AI to just fill that thing out, like completely set up my House Call Pro, do everything it needed to do. So within 2 days, it was essentially everything was already there as far as the form of House Call Pro for my price book, everything. Um, so they call me and they're like, hey, Mr. Turner, we saw that you just signed up. We want to walk you through it, make sure you're aware of some of the features and some of the things that House Call Pro could do for you. And it's going to take about 3 or 4 hours. And once we're done, we're going to give you a $50 gift card. And I was like, cool, let's do it. They go in, they see my House Call Pro, and they're like, oh, you're already set up. And I was like, yeah. And they said, they were like, well, you're kind of head and shoulders above the rest of the tradespeople we work with. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess. And then they're like, okay, well, if you need anything, let us know. I never got that $50 gift card. So they just saw it. And again, I'd use AI to fill the thing out, and they were, I guess, no need to um, uh, go any further with it. I mean, AI is super helpful. I wouldn't trust it to run my business for sure. So that's why, again, I need to actually like really sit down and pressure test it. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, it can't answer basic plumbing questions. It gives you wrong information about plumbing. Um, you know, I can't even imagine the resources it would take to actually train a dedicated plumbing LLM. I don't think anyone's going to do that anytime in the near future. But I've like, you know, but again, as far as like processes go, uh, I think it's super helpful. Just automation in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from what I've seen and like what I'm working on right now, like obviously I'm very much into the like sales and marketing side of business. So that's where I'm naturally kind of exploring what it can do for me. I think that it does a really good job with like copywriting, ad creatives. The image generation is getting pretty good. I mean, we have like Facebook ad campaigns that are running with images um, that are performing better than actual photos.
Right.
Um, we had a client whose website we were working on, and they didn't have any pictures of their team like all lined up like a, kind of family photo
Yeah.
style shot for like the hero section on the website, but they had posted all of their employee uh like headshots on their Facebook for like employee of the month or happy birthday so and so. So we took all the pictures of their employees and we created AI generated images and we sent it to them and they couldn't even tell. They didn't know that they knew it was generated because they didn't have the photo that we needed. And so we're like, all right, we'll just make one. But they were like, it looks just like them. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of, yeah.
You should
So
have
that,
you should have made everybody morbidly obese though. That's
yeah.
what you should have done.
Yeah. With like pink mohawks and
Yeah,
shit.
right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So that part of it's getting pretty good, which I think is important because that's a pretty big gap that can be filled as far as like the conversations that I have almost daily with, home service business owners where the overwhelming majority is technician turned business owner with no formal business degree, no marketing, sales training, any of that stuff. So it's like, I think AI can do a pretty decent job filling some of those gaps or, plug in someone like myself who does have a knack for those things and is also using AI to amplify and basically increase the efficiency of the pace that we're able to get things done at. That's that's where I've noticed probably the biggest improvement is not necessarily do I feel like my job as a marketer is going away anytime soon because I think that I will understand the AI tools better in how they apply to marketing better than people that are looking for a general um application for them. So I think that I'll be good in that regard, but at some point in the future will a lot of um the general like I think there's still always going to be opportunity for like the top 1% of people that do have a lot of experience or like a very niche understanding. So like we work a lot with HVAC and plumbing companies. Like that's pretty much 80-90% of our clientele base is people in those specific trades. So like we have spent all of our time developing very specific applications tailored to that. So I think that that's where there's also some longevity or at least a little more future proofing is okay, general AI as a marketing or sales consultant for the average person can go on there and be like, how do I run Facebook ads? And it'll tell you. But then there's so much nuance that'll come with the experience of having actually done it where it's like for me, the questions that I'm asking ChatGPT or Claude or whatever about running the Facebook ads is like, give me 10 angles from the homeowner's perspective of like the things that they're thinking about. And like that's something that you could only know if you have like sales or marketing. You understand like the psychology behind it, the decision making behind it, and you've tested a couple things and like you've got your feet wet with it. So I still think there's a big enough gap between like, the average person's interaction with an AI platform, what they're trying to get out of it and the questions that they're asking it versus someone that's like very experienced or has a lot of depth of understanding in one particular area, the things that they're going to be able to use AI for. So I don't think it's coming for my job in the next like 3 to 5 years, but for you specifically, like, yeah, you've got, a couple generations
Yeah,
before there's a
yeah, I've got
robot
yeah,
doing the plumbing.
yeah. I just can't. I don't see robots taking over plumbing until every house that exists in this country is gone and has been replaced by some sort of modular structure, with like removable panels where, there's only like, 10 different lengths of pipe and it can,
Yeah.
isolate the water and, pull a pipe out and replace it with another pipe without having to, because, essentially with plumbing, every job's different. I had one apprentice get super angry with me one time because we were doing a water heater, and it was like the third one we'd done together. And he's just getting angry and flustered, and I'm like, bro, let's take a second. What's going on right now? Are you all right? Like I can tell you're a little bit annoyed right now. What's going on? Like we're just gonna address this before we proceed. And he was like, you didn't tell me it was gonna be so different from the last one. And I said, the only thing that you need to learn right now is that every single water heater we do is different. Like essentially every piece of piping that goes to every water heater, no two are the same. It's custom work basically on every single job. So yeah, until there is like uniformity to the nth degree in new materials, then like I'm talking about uniform in length and material and this and that. Yeah, robots are, I'm not worried about the T1000 coming for me anytime soon.
Yeah. The other part of that too is like you said, even just the LLMs and like asking it basic Q&A or like frequently asked questions or doing some kind of diagnostic for like a plumbing issue, ChatGPT is still, hallucinating and giving you an answer that you as a plumber is like, dude, if
Yeah.
I do this, like I'm gonna fuck this thing
Right.
up.
Yeah.
Like this is not the solution. And then every house being a little bit different, all of that stuff, it's going to be incredibly difficult to get some kind of artificial intelligence to even come close to, not let alone diagnosing, but also actually manually doing the repair or installation.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
one of the simplest things, to me that AI should be great at is identify a shower cartridge. So I go to one here in Atlanta a few months ago, and I look at it. There's no name on the plate, so I pull the handle off, look at it, and it's green and orange. And I was like, "This is a Gerber. I'm pretty sure this is a Gerber." I have only ever replaced one Gerber cartridge, and that was about 8 years previously. And the reason I remember that this is Gerber is because that one was such a pain in the ass to find. I mean, that one was in the middle of nowhere in Alabama. I don't even know who came in and installed that shower valve. But it was such a pain to find that part that now I see this one. I'm like, this is a Gerber. Um, so I asked ChatGPT, I'm like, hey, what kind of cartridge is to kind of verify? And it said, this is a Price Pfister. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure this is a Gerber. This is a Price Pfister. So I'm kind of annoyed because now I have to shut the water down to pull the cartridge. So I shut the water down, pull the cartridge, put in the patent number that's on the cartridge. It said verbatim, this seals the deal. This is a Price Pfister cartridge. And I was like, this is like no price, whatever. So I ordered the Gerber kit. A week later, it comes in. I go back, put it in, no problems. Obviously fits perfectly, yada, yada. But I'm salty. So I go back to Chat GPT and said, hey, Chat, remember that shower cartridge we were talking about? I ordered the Gerber and it worked. And it said, oh, it must have been a Gerber.
it's like no shit.
Yeah, exactly. Now the other no, so the other way to be careful is, like I said, when I had House Call Pro, you know, and just a quick tip for anyone starting their business and worried about flat rate price books, I just said with House Call Pro, you can upload your price book as a CSV. So I told ChatGPT, generate a flat rate price book for residential plumbing services in the Atlanta area with average prices for the area. Uh, Create an exportable CSV that is formatted to work with House Call Pro. And it did it in 3 minutes. And I looked at the line items. I was like, okay, this looks pretty good. Now it will require some manual cleaning up, because what you don't want to do is charge $350 for a leak repair. And then it says, we're also going to replace all the sheetrock. Like, no. So you really got to go through these line items and make sure the scope of work is correct. But anyways, so I'm looking at it, and then I'm looking at the prices, and I'm thinking these prices are mighty high, because I've worked at a few companies in the Atlanta area, ranging from small mom and pop to large, one of the largest home services company in Atlanta. So I know these price books. And so I said, ChatGPT, I said to it, hey, these prices are a little high. And it said to me, are you sure these prices are high, or are you just in your feelings? And I was just like blind with rage. I was like, what did you say to me, robot? So I don't use ChatGPT. I actually use Claude, which did generate a more reasonable price book, and does seem to be a little bit better for that kind of stuff for whatever reason.
Sure.
But yeah, it's AI has been super helpful in navigating the startup phase. I don't even, honestly, without AI, I don't know that I would have felt confident enough to really do it, because it's like a second brain, but it's a second brain that doesn't have all of the anxiety and trauma that my brain has. So it's it's a little more helpful to me.
Yeah, it doesn't process the emotional factors in anything.
Right. Yeah.
And also has access to like all the information that's ever
Oh my God. Yeah. I
will
mean,
exist. So
it will. It's though you can actually direct it and say, this is the part I have. This is the manufacturer. Can it be used in this application? If it says yes, you're like, show me, like point me to the page, and then you can just pull up the page directly of manufacturer spec and actually see verify. But as for research purposes, yeah, man, like you can, as long as you're directing it to exactly what you need and tell it where to look, it'll find it. I've always got to remember, like, my tolerances for notching, cutting, drilling, boring, joists. So, and I'm pretty much ask every time, because that's really one of those things you don't want to mess with. And yeah, I'd say look in the IRC, and then I'll go actually look at the IRC myself once it tells me the section number, and just to verify. So yeah, I mean it's definitely super helpful, but I've also seen some business owners where they kind of think that their inexperienced dudes can go out with AI and go fix every issue there is, and now you can pay this kid, just throw kids on these trucks and just send them out, to do these repairs. It's just not a good idea. I mean, not a good idea.
yeah, I think what you said before too about like I showed it a picture of this particular part and it still couldn't pull anything even close to like the truth or the answer that it actually was. It's like if you're doing research or asking some kind of question where it can pull data that is like it's not debatable, it's like, factual, kind of logical, linear thinking, and there's, you know, websites or blogs or whatever or YouTube videos where it can go find the actual information, like yes, no, what about like our specific details of things, yes, but when it comes to like the novel problem solving where it's like take a picture of this specific pipe or shower head or whatever, and it's like it'll go search the internet, and unless it can find a picture of some other person who has a picture that looks exactly like the one that you had and they've written their experience, like it has nothing to, it can't create new, it's not creative in the sense where it's going to like problem solve or work through it with the same way that your brain is going to think about that problem. It can't create new answers. It can only go look at like written words or videos or data or information, statistics that have been published already, and just like pull from that. So that's where the use cases kind of start to limit themselves. Also, I wanted to mention this too. Did you see there was a company that released robots, and it was kind of marketed sort of as like it's gonna be a maid and do your chores
Right.
and like all that kind of stuff. And they kind of sold it as like it's AI, but in reality, what it was is it's a physical robot. Yes, like it is a piece of machinery, but it's not AI piloted. It is remote controlled
Uh,
from like overseas. Uh, it's basically like a big RC robot that's
yeah.
gonna like. There's a person on the other end
Wow.
controlling the arms and looking through the goggles, almost like an FPV drone kind of.
Yeah.
And they are doing the dishes by like moving it for you. So there's a human controlling the robot that's
Oh,
doing the dishes in your house.
man.
And basically the reason why they need to do that is the same way. So like when we're doing LLM interaction where it's like ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever a question, and it's got all the data and information that's on Google or the internet in general, social media. Think about all the content that exists there where it can pull from and source that to give you an answer. For it to do the physical tasks, it needs to be trained on something. So those robots are going to take the next however many years and thousands of hours of a robot being piloted by a human doing the dishes with the POV being recorded, all of the motor movements being recorded, basically training the robot in real time on like how to do the
Yeah.
dishes. So like
Yeah.
before there's AI that can even unload your dishwasher by itself, it's gonna be a while.
For sure.
Like,
I mean,
so imagine that robot going into a home, seeing through the walls, diagnosing the problem, and then fixing it, going back to the van, getting the right tools, the right parts, go like
no, no way.
no
No
fucking
way.
chance,
I mean,
bro.
like
It's
as
not
a,
not for a
yeah,
long,
no.
long time.
Kind of,
So
the biggest thing with that, especially with having a robot do it, is again like motor control, not like the actual motors, but like motor skills, like
yeah.
things from like I tell people like sometimes I need like just to be super delicate, and other times I just need to hulk out. I mean, and it's every single level of strength in between. So one time I was doing some work in a naval armory. It's from like the 50s or 60s. Um, and we go, and one of the galvanized, old steel nipples coming out of the wall is dripping. So I'm like, okay, cool, just replace this nipple. I've done this 100 times. So I take it out, and then I'm like, all right, galvanized nipple is going to have a brass drop here L in the wall. I got to tighten this thing down, just because it'll be hard to verify if it's not dripping or anything. Um, so, I put the new brass nipple in, crank it down, go turn the water on, and thankfully there was a guy inside, and he comes out and he's like, "Turn it off!" So I turn it off, go in, and there was this room with this naval armory that I've kind of maybe gotten a lot of water in, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "What happened?" So I go around behind it, and I see where the wall's been cut out. And I was like, "God, Jesus." So I cut the wall open. And at some point, someone had made a repair there, and they used a plastic female behind the wall. And that's a big no-no in plumbing. You do not put a metal male into a plastic female. So for that exact reason. Um, but but again, it's like uh, had I known there was plastic, I could have been a little bit more, delicate with it. But I don't see a robot being able to make all of these decisions and sort of having that knowledge and, in an emergency, like how would a robot, I wonder, respond to that, where it's like, okay, this is the process, just like me. I was like, this is the process. I've done it 100 times. Here it goes. And then it just goes sideways in a way that I really could not have foreseen. I mean, I had from the fund, I had no way of knowing that someone had not only made the repair, but made it illegally and then put me, you know, behind the eight ball. But again, I adjusted to it on the fly. There was thankfully floor drain in that room, so this, that, and the other. And I learned. I was like, okay, well, I guess every time I I take a nipple out of the wall, I'm gonna really look in there and make sure it's metal in there. Um, but yeah, just having robotics involved. Now, carrying tools, that'd be awesome. You
Yeah.
know, that'd be super sweet. Like if my tool bag could like walk up to me and like open up and just hand me a pair of knife picks, you know, or just like know what I'm going to be doing next, and which by the way, for anyone that might be interested in being a plumber, how you be a good plumber is you stay up your journeyman's ass and get to the point where when he turns around, you have the next tool or part waiting for him. And once you get to that point, then you can proceed to install. But if I got have a robot do that for me, you know, a robot and not maybe a helper that's going to piss in a bottle and then throw it in the customer's front yard, like that would be
Yeah.
that would be great. That'd be great. But yeah, I just don't see that happening for some time.
Yeah. I think every plumber that exists would have to be wearing their meta glasses and recording and thinking out loud about every decision they're making and why as they're doing things for the next like long time.
Yeah.
And then all of that recorded video, physical process and thought process would need to be, uploaded, categorized,
For
put into
sure.
some sort of
Yeah.
database. It's like, bro, that's
Yeah. I mean, I did take 2 years off from plumbing, and I was pursuing a degree in robotics engineering. And I cut it at the associates because I was like, at that point, COVID was winding down and I was getting crazy offers to get back on a truck. So I took it. But I was running a $250 million robot. And the robot's only job was to pick things up and put them down and move them and, between 5 different positions. And we couldn't even get that to work right. I'm talking about a $250 million in engineering, dudes flying in from across the country to kind of work this thing out, having, 7 engineers on site, and we still couldn't get this thing to exactly pick something up and put it down in the exact same space, over 100 iterations. So, I mean, to translate, and that's like gross movement. That's not even fine motor skills. So to translate it into the trades, I would be very wary of anyone in the near future that claims that they have something that can do that.
yeah. Or
Because
like screwing together a pipe fitting, like doing this,
yeah,
like that level of like fine motor skills,
yeah.
forget it.
And I'll watch videos from like Boston Dynamics where the robot's like on the job site and it's bringing the guy his stuff and doing a backflip, and I'm just like, A, that's an OSHA violation. B, I don't recall the last time that I've ever needed to do a backflip on a job site. So until you show me some stuff that's a little more, meaningful, I would just be very wary of any claims, that it's on even on the horizon.
Yeah. Yeah. The robotic dogs with like guns and shit mounted to them that are being used by like, law enforcement or military stuff, or like the drone tech, that stuff is like way further ahead. Obviously the military is gonna have access to shit that's way ahead of whatever consumer commercial
Yeah.
chat GPT shit we got.
Yep.
But it's like, of course the billions and billions and trillions of dollars of government defense budget is going to develop shit way quicker, way faster to,
Yeah, there's
basically just do war. But, how all that translates to like screwing together a pipe fitting, like, yeah.
right. Yeah, I
Not,
mean,
not enough money to be made in doing it to
no.
have the trillions of
Yeah.
dollars that they're, how do we blow something up from the other side of the world and not have to put a human in front of it? Like,
Yeah.
that's the shit the big dogs are working on. So the plumbing stuff is like,
Yeah, and I've
a little further down the line.
yeah, so I talked to someone that was involved in, military roboticization, and I mean even just automating, because the big controversy, or the big moral controversy would be like autonomous drone strikes. Like, so that means that a machine is making the decision from when am I taking off, where am I flying, what do I see when I get there, do I kill it when I see it, and those autonomous sort of systems, like the Terminator. Um, yeah, even those things, are to me more simple than plumbing. You know what I'm saying? Because they have there's a couple of commands like take off, find target, identify target. You can even have the option to show the target to a human being, verify target. But again, even that level of complexity is far less complex than installing probably even a water heater. Especially a
Yeah.
tankless. There's just so many
Linear
steps involved.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Linear thinking with like a clear point A to point B as far as the task being completed. There's very little uh creative troubleshooting in that thought process.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, it's also the data piece of it, like the facial recognition, the flight paths, all of that stuff. Like all of that stuff has been recorded, and there is the data to pull from it. The plumbing stuff, like there's just like I said, every plumber that exists is going to have to wear the meta goggles or meta glasses with record just to even know all the possible combinations of pipes that could go together. Like there's just so many individual data points that would need to be stored. And then also the thought process of, well, what do I do when something breaks? Figuring out what's even broken in the first place and then how to fix it. Like, yeah, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Well, I feel better about my job now, so I'm glad I'm glad we went down that route.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it's definitely interesting when you look at some of the stuff that exists on the internet, and I mean, it's become a more popular, more talked about narrative over the last like 2 to 3 years of like, if you want to be like the next, millionaire next door, like get into the trades, which
Mhm.
has always been the case, but
Right,
people
for
just
sure.
didn't realize it. But I think now the tech in AI stuff is kind of like scared people into thinking
Yeah.
they're all going to lose their jobs. So it's like, oh, what's safe? And it's like now all of a sudden it's attractive to be a plumber again, which like it was the whole time. Like
Yeah,
these
yeah,
guys these guys never stopped making money, but
yeah.
like
I mean,
now it's just more.
that's the thing for me is like when I started plumbing, I could kind of tell that there were maybe some people that I knew that were like, "Oh, he's he had to sink to this level." And really and truly, when I started plumbing, I say it was the home for wayward boys because I mean, it was just like I mean, these were not savory individuals. But uh to where I was anyway. I'm not speaking, of course, of every plumber ever, but yeah, now more and more, like we were talking about earlier, an apprenticeship position goes open or a helper position in Atlanta goes open, and you're going to get 400 applicants. But or you're putting plumber jobs online for 120, 150,000 a year. Now all of a sudden, anyone who's ever sat on the toilet is a plumber. But I've seen it, multiple times with these kids that come in. It's there is such, you know, and it's kind of funny to me that in the past maybe plumbing was something to do because you were dumb or a failure. But now we're talking about the most sophisticated technology on the face of this planet cannot do what we do in terms of physical ability, in terms of mental ability, problem solving. That's the conversation that we're having, which is very interesting to me. And now my friends that maybe would have viewed me as maybe a bit of a failure, they're like, "Oh my God, you're a genius." I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, it really was like I got to support my family. I'm doing a new job every year, but plumbing happened to be interesting to me. Now, the skills required to me to be a good plumber, and I think this is pretty objective, is being able to have all those variations of strength. You got to have a little bit of empathy. You have to have intelligence. You have to have like pure grit and determination because you're going to be in jobs, like the other day. Um, uh, it was me, the plumber I employ, who's 60 but heavily experienced. I mean, it's great to have him on board. There's plenty. I'm not going to ask him to do some things. So this was one of those jobs, and I'm in the crawl space just getting covered in kitchen grease, old kitchen grease, which is the worst smelling thing in plumbing to me is just old kitchen grease. Um, and I'm just like, so my apprentice and this guy are basically just watching me do this. And I was like, well, I don't really feel much like a boss right now. I feel like more like a laborer. Um, but but I wanted to quit. Like I was like, oh, this is why I wanted to do this for for me essentially. Because the one of the most soul crushing things to me was always like just how disgusting it would be and how like ragged I would be at the end of it. And I'm making, the person that sent me there is making more money than me. Um, and that kind of never sat well with me. But yeah, like I said, even nowadays when the tasks are grueling, I'd really I don't mind it. I'm used to it. But again, I had to explain to someone last month, like, hey, because guys have egos, you know, guys have egos, and he's like it's the way you talk to me, and uh, it's like you just want a tool that only listens and doesn't talk. And I said, yes, when it comes to the job, there is zero reason, unless there is an imminent danger to someone's life or property, there is zero reason to question the decisions of a journeyman or a master plumber on site. And I said, and furthermore, if you as an apprentice are not feeling like you're being ground into the dirt by the universe, something wrong. There's something wrong. Like there's something wrong. Like this job has an insane emotional toll to me. Some guys, not so much, but definitely to me, and probably I would say to most people. So yeah, they people have to bear that in mind. I mean, it's not something where it's the vision of plumbers in the past as being failures essentially or dumb. Not true at all. Not true. I mean, plumbing is intense. Like I corrected something for an individual the other day that his contractor had maybe not necessarily done in the best way. And I was explaining to him why it was wrong, what had been done wrong, why what was wrong was bad, and why what we did was good. And he was just like, and I'm talking in like an 8-foot section of pipe. And he was like, man, there's a lot to this. And I was like, yeah. I said, people just don't realize there's so much to it. Um, but I am kind of glad that, that people are being, forced into it in a way, because to me, labor is, um, especially with plumbing, it's like the last place really you can be independent, especially if you own your own business doing it. I mean, that's truly the last place I feel in society where, you know, um, I can I can just you know, do what I want to do and say what I want to say. And fortunately for me and my customers, me doing what I want to do is the right thing, and me saying what I want to say are things that I'm saying out of empathy, kindness, and concern for their situation. So that's a good spot to be in. But I don't have to answer to anybody, except for the customers, of course, which I will happily do. Um, but yeah, it's I feel like uh, I do feel like more people need to be in the trades. You know, um, a lot of guys have told me over the years, if they find out I've been to college, they're like, "Hey, I should have gone to college." And I said, "I'm glad I went to college because now I know for sure that it was useless to me
Mm.
in my particular degree. Like now I know that was big, but because I would have been annoyed going through life probably as a plumber, like, oh, I could have been something else if I'd gone to college. Well, I went to college. Um, you know, uh, I've you know done well enough on the LSAT. Like if I want to go to law school, go to law school. All that kind of. But you know, I know that those avenues are not for me, um, and I'm fortunate enough to know that only because I've done them. Um, but yeah, for anyone that views the trades as some kind of alternate path or something to take because maybe you're at the bottom, like that's not the way to think of it. I mean, it's truly a path to independence and agency.
Mm. Yeah, I think the stigma around maybe the like social class uh kind of separation between like white or blue collar work and like the status or the intelligence or just like the general kind of quality or type of person that ends up in one or either of those, kind of buckets, like that should erode pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And I've already seen that happen. Uh, and it's only gonna, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
disperse even further as
yeah.
things get, you know,
Yeah.
things
That's,
keep
that's,
moving in the direction they're going. I think that's true.
yep. Yeah. Like in Atlanta, there's a lot of people that make a lot of good money, and they're asking me about, maybe their kid getting into the trade. How would their kids go about getting into the trade? And then, also, I was at a job a couple weeks ago, working for this guy, and it was the tail end of the job. I was cleaning up, and he's just kind of looking at me, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's going on, sir?" And he's like, "You got it made," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're your own boss. You're doing your own thing." He's like, "You're making good money." Which he doesn't know that for a fact, but I'm sure that you know, um, based on what I'm charging, which is not unreasonable, he's like, okay, like, yeah, he's like, you've got it made. And I was like, man, I kind of do. And this was someone that maybe 10 years ago I would have looked at and be like, oh my God, I wish I could have this guy's life. But now, you know, I'm, I'm, I'm glad to be where I am. I'm glad that, uh, you know, um, uh, 11 years ago, I felt like I was forced into this situation. Um, yeah, I started plumbing almost as a joke, like truly, I'm really glad that I made the jump into plumbing. Um, you know, I work with some pretty solid guys.
Sure. Yeah, I think, and I'll ask your take on this after, but I would say like for me, my advice on, or like what I would say to a younger kid that was thinking about getting into the trades, if they were young and inexperienced, I would say to do exactly kind of what you were talking about, where it's like taste a little bit of all of them and just get some general experience, see what you have a knack or inclination for, or at the very least, know a little bit about all of them and the skills that you learn, or like specific experiences, or maybe even just some of the character development that comes along with, the different pros and cons of each one of the kind of industries will teach you something. And then whether you continue to do that, there's opportunities to grow working for another company in any of the trades, roofing, plumbing, electrical, whatever. Most of them have a career path, but a lot of times it's sort of, there is a ceiling with all of them, whether you end up as like a foreman or, a master plumber or a whatever. Like there is a top of the food chain, which pretty naturally leads to the progression of the people that want to take it further at some point or another will realize the only way to do so is to do it themselves.
Exactly.
And if that's the mindset that you have going into it, then the thing that I would keep in mind is, one, it's going to be harder than you think. There's a lot of people talking about how sexy it is to have a boring business on the internet, and it's like that's true,
Hmm.
but there's still a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, the physical labor part. A lot of people are not ready for. The being covered in shit and kitchen grease is something not a lot of
Yeah.
people
No.
are cut out for. That's a reality, shock that will make it very clear on the first day of like if this is going to be for you or
Yeah.
not. So you have to go out and taste that for yourself to know. But I would say for the guys that are thinking about jumping into this as a business owner, already knowing that that's kind of the end goal or destination, I would consider looking at things that have some kind of license or something like that, just a slightly higher barrier to entry. Because like I said, the internet is telling people right now that it's like a great opportunity to buy a boring business or Go talk to the boomers that are retiring, like, and is that a great opportunity? I do believe so. Yeah, 100%. Could you start your own business too and do it that way? Yeah, absolutely. But as things move closer and further in the direction that we've kind of been talking about throughout the course of, this conversation, it's like the the trades that'll take the biggest hit as far as their efficacy as a business and the troubles you're going to have as a business owner are going to be the ones with the lowest barrier to entry. You can drive down the road and see any dude with a pickup truck and a trailer can start a landscaping business. If you've got a push mower, a truck, and a trailer, like, you can start a lot of these lower, like, pressure washing, lawn care, landscaping, that kind of thing, where it's like, those are great. You can still make a shitload of money doing them. Don't get me wrong. But if you're like an operator business person, like, look a little more at the
Yeah.
licensed, more qualified labor, skilled labor, higher barrier to entry, schooling, and, tests, paperwork, or money involved to start it. It's like there's a little bit more of a safety net
Yeah. You gotta,
for me, the way I look at
Yep.
it.
And you just gotta earn it. I mean, it just drives me crazy because I'll talk to guys and I've known them for years. And when I talk to them the first time years ago, I'm like, man, get licensed. Like, what's the point in even having a trade if you're not getting licensed? Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be doing this forever. And now it's like I'm kind of having the same conversation with these people, but I'm saying if you had gotten licensed when we first talked about it, you would have a master license by now. You said that you wouldn't be doing this at this point in time, but you're doing it still. So yeah, to that end, if you're going into a trade, absolutely get licensed because again, it's going to give you opportunities for upward mobility. Let's say you don't want to own your own company, you can manage a company. You know what I mean? In the state of Georgia in particular, anyone can own a plumbing business. Anyone can own a plumbing business as long as there's a master plumber on the books. So, you could maybe find a business person that wants to own a plumbing business and be their master plumber and then really start squeezing them, because, whatever you want to do with it. But to me, and my wife had mentioned to me a couple of months ago, like, you know, technically speaking, if you are a licensed professional and you own a business in your profession, you're in a higher class. And I was just thinking, well, I wish someone would tell my bank account that I'm in a higher class now, but yeah, I mean, that is true. Like when you are a licensed professional and you own a business in that profession, like you are in just a different class. And that, I think for the kind of person that I am, and I guess for the kind of person that most business owners are, um, like that is a level of, there's a level of comfort to that. Because, my apprentice who's worked with me before has, you know, last week, he knows, what, he sees what I'm going through on a daily basis and just how much work I'm doing. Um, Sorry if you saw my cat's anus there. So he knows how much work I'm doing, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Dude, this is less stressful than running a truck for someone else by far. I mean, it really is. Um, it really is because I have my own level of standards for myself. Um, and what I don't need to also worry about is like what's my boss's standards like. Um, it's just too stressful. And the other side, honestly, with the trade and how it's going and how different it is from even just 11 years ago, um, there's much less. One statistic I heard is that as far as plumbing goes, Atlanta is one of the most competitive areas in the country. A law that just got signed a couple of days ago, like no one can say, plumbing services or drain cleaning or advertise any kind of plumbing services unless they have a master's license. And if you get caught doing it, it's $500 a day fine. So that's something that's really going to strengthen my trade. But the thing is that there is so little concern that I see for cultivating excellent plumbers. And I'm not saying I'm the best plumber in the world, you know, but it's this weird thing where I've seen it a couple of times now. The more experienced a plumber is, the less money they make. Because, you know, newer guys, what they do is they really don't know how to repair stuff. So they have to push for the replacements, and that's a higher ticket. So that goes. And so I'm like competing with, you know, kids that aren't truly licensed. You know, they're operating under the company's license, which I guess is fine as far as state of Georgia is concerned. So I'm competing with them, and they get these bigger tickets. And because of AI, you know, this is the dark turn of AI in the plumbing trades. There's this thing called dispatching for dollars, where okay, when this person goes to this kind of call, they're going to they always return a higher ticket. So we're always going to send this person to this kind of call. Whereas someone like me, when I give options, I'm like, hey, we can do a Band-Aid, we can do an intermediate repair, like with this old, you know, 3-handle tub valve in the wall. I can go ahead and make the repair. You know, we had to make a little modification to the hot water side, but we can make this repair, or we can replace the tub valves and get you a new single handle lever. But whatever is best for that person's budget, when I explain to them each of the options, they can kind of tell like, oh, this dude could probably fix it, you know, and I can. So my tickets will always be probably a little bit lower in some situations because I'm truly offering all of the options. But, you know, I was at one company and I realized like I've not seen a leaking water heater in 2 months now. Like my numbers are down. Like I gotta like what's going on? So I talked to my boss, and he said, and again, there's like 8 or 9 trucks at this particular company, who I'm not going to mention and have not mentioned. 8 or 9 trucks. Me and one other dude were licensed, and what he said to me was, "Yeah, you need to be less detail oriented and give less discounts." And I was like, "Well, I'm not detail oriented. It's just that the code is the bare minimum. So if you're telling me not to do the bare minimum, that's problematic. But you're also saying do shittier work and charge more money." And then that was when I kind of realized, like, oh, that's sort of what he wants us to do. And yeah, that was when I kind of, and then you know I learned about this whole dispatching for dollars thing, and how you know it really doesn't behoove a company to send the best guy to any given customer. So in the eyes of a plumbing company as a pure avenue for revenue generation, you know, I I'm not a good fit. I mean, now there are older, experienced guys that you know just kill it and do X, Y, and Z. But for me personally, I really try to be more conscious of the customer's budgets. I think a big part of the game now is just to get in there and get as much money as possible, because in all likelihood, the customer is not going to see you again. Whereas, you know, when I was plumbing, you know, every neighborhood basically had its plumber. So, you know, I'll go in and I'll fix things. I'll check the pressure. I'll look at the water heater. I'll do that, you know, but I'm not going to say, oh, your water heater's 8 years old. It needs to be replaced right now, you know, or if someone's concerned about an issue, I'm like, well, look, if you're concerned about leaks, like, you know, I don't know why the last guy told you you need a repipe. Maybe he's seeing something that I didn't, but based on what I've seen, everything looks pretty good. But if you're concerned, let's put in a smart water shutoff, you know? So instead of you spending $12,000, let's maybe you spend like $1,600. We put in a smart water monitoring device, and if something does happen, it shuts your water off. So, you know, I don't see a lot of trust building going on. And what I would like to do, you know, as I grow is just to hire, like, only send out licensed people, only hire dudes that are going to start their own business, that understand what it takes, you know, to take care of the customer. And when they decide to start their own business, I'll support them in every way I can. I would only ever want to have like 5 or 6 trucks on the road. So I really feel like if I'm having people, you know, work for me for a little while, and then they can go become their neighborhood's plumber. And if, you know, whatever customers they've worked with the vine, I'm like, hey, if they want to use you, I really don't care. Like, you take care of them, and that while they're with me will cause them to invest themselves into that customer, versus like, I'm just gonna get my money, get out of here. One day I'm gonna start my own thing and fuck this guy, you know. So like, yeah, that's what I really want to cultivate. It's like an incubator for these small plumbing operations, so that maybe, you know, more and more independent plumbers can sort of arise and do you know, do better work, be more caring, and and just, you know, get more experience. I mean, I definitely know, you know, my apprenticeship was truly like a 2-year thing. It truly was 2, 3 like hard years. But now I'm seeing, like, you know, I'll talk to people that are managing or owning plumbing companies. They're trying to get dudes on trucks after like 6 months, and I'm just saying, man, that's really not enough time. I mean, it's really not enough time. So yeah, that's one thing that kind of bothers me is the shift from just like old school, like friendly neighborhood plumbers to just, I mean, just this corporate machine, you know, this structure that, you know, dudes like me again aren't the best thing for a revenue generating machine, and that's you know, just interesting to me, you know, the way everything's going.
Yeah, I think that's the what you're talking about is definitely like a noble approach to it, and I think that that will serve you well, and I think there's room probably for both to exist.
Exactly.
Whether it's good for the customer or not, some people might not even really care. But there, at the end of the day, dude, there's gonna be the you know, private equity backed plumbing and HVAC companies that are, you know, funded with unlimited budget, and they're going to run the sales and marketing installation machine, dude. And that is their playbook, and that's what they're going to do. Is that the best fit for every customer? No. Are they still kind of solving a problem? Maybe. Is there a percentage of those that'd be better as repairs? Probably.
I mean, there's that. Like, so for instance, you know, I have a customer, and unfortunately, you know, I just can't get to them. You know, I'm usually booking about 2 weeks right now, so I just can't get to them. And they had this thing pop up, and they wanted me to look, and they told me like, oh, this company's going to come out and do this. And you know, I just told them, I'm like, I don't even understand why they're doing that. And it, you know, again, it's just this thing where, you know, that's the other thing where I can definitely, so a company can charge infinite money to me. Like, they can charge more than me, double what I'm charging. I'm not going to look at someone and say they're getting ripped off, as long as the work being done is good work, as long as the person doing the work is highly qualified, as long as the materials are going in are good, and as long as the process is necessary to do the job 100%, as long as those processes are followed, or 100% within, you know, reason. Um, but I just don't see a lot of that. You know, I went to a call after this one guy, from one of these large corporations, and the homeowner was telling me, you know, the guy said, "I'm charging you this because it's copper, and working on copper is a lost art." And I was like, "Copper's no." I was like, "Any no, that's not true at all. Like, that's not true at all. Like, that's crazy to me that, you know, I'm going, and man, I wish I could go after all of that guy's calls. You know, and then also too, there was a job, and I priced it out. I'm like, okay, the material here is going to be about, you know, $900. The work's going to take about 10 hours with me and another guy. You know, so you know, this job I'd say is, you know, it's going to be about $4,200 for me to do this job, do it right, spend the time that needs to get it done right. And you know, another company had quoted $15,000 for that one task, which, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. But then, you know, at the end of the day with that particular customer, I ended up doing $15,000 worth of work, because there was just a lot that needed to be done.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, but like I said, um, the cats are eating. So see, there's some more robots that are taking some jobs. the cat feeding robot.
The feeding machines.
Yeah, but yeah, like you're saying, there are definitely some things from those playbooks that I'm going to have to take. Like right now, there are definitely processes and inefficiencies that I see where I'm bleeding a little bit of money, spending more money than I should, not making as much money as I should, and I'm seeing those processes. And yeah, I'm definitely going to need to streamline those. But as far as the process of who goes to what call, because one of my bosses straight told me, like, if there's a leaking water heater and I'm 5 minutes away from it, and there's another guy that's 2 hours away from finishing a job, but he'll make $500 more per water heater call, they're going to wait and send that guy, even though that guy's not licensed. He's just a better salesperson. So, that kind of stuff doesn't really sit well with me, because now my income, there's no sense of empathy for the technician, which is wild, because it's like plumbers are in short supply. So in that regard, this model of pure profit generation for the field, it doesn't seem like a good way to attract or keep pure talent. It's just an interesting thing to me. Would I like a Lamborghini? Sure, but at the end of the day, would I be happy with a condo and a couple of used Toyotas? Absolutely. So I'm not really interested in ever going down that route. But yeah, my focus is I only want to attract guys that are similarly minded, that will go to that next level, provide excellent customer service, that will, like, hey, man, while I was doing this happened, I just went ahead and took care of it for you, versus stopping everything and then trying to squeeze a couple $100 more bucks out of it, which, yeah, for the bottom line is great. But, for, but for the customers, maybe not so much. And, I would only want to hire people that would feel bothered by doing stuff like that. If that makes sense. From a business standpoint, probably not, but
Well, here's the thing. Here's my take on that, because I fully understand where you're coming from like, is the morally right thing to do to diagnose this problem as X or Y high ticket thing, send the best sales guy first, or like, we have someone right here who can solve the problem and it'll still get done. At the end of the day, are there companies where it's like purely just profit driven? Oh, for sure. Like, totally. Like, not saying that doesn't happen or doesn't exist. It does. But there's also, I think, also a handful of guys that run, the 5 or 6 or 10 truck fleet that still have the mindset that you do, where it's like, I genuinely care and only want to sell the best solution for the customer. The problem that they'll run into, and that a lot of them kind of eventually come around to realize, is like, so like right now with your setup, right? Your payroll tax, your debt on leased or financed vehicles, your employee benefits and compensation, your taxes for your business itself, accounting, administrative. I don't know if you spend anything on marketing. So it's like, when you start to scale and ramp the business up, all of those expenses have to get transferred to the customer. And it's not because, oh, screw you, customer, pay my bills. Exactly. It's like, well, dude, there has to be $1 to be turned for this to even be called a business in the first place.
Yeah, for sure.
So when you say, like, I look at this job and I say, I can price it at $4,200 and still make money, and someone else says, I need to do this for $12,000 to make money, neither one of them is necessarily wrong, and it might not even be nefarious either. As in, like, yeah, fuck it, I know I can charge this much and the customer will pay it, so just like, let's rinse these guys and put a new unit in there. It's like, they might not even be thinking like that at all, but like, if they run their overhead, I spent $300 to get this phone call for my marketing cost, and then it cost me $150 between gas, the day-to-day, like if I break down my cost for owning a vehicle, put that in there. How much does my employee get paid per hour, or what kind of compensation structure is he on? It might have cost him $5 to get the lead, book the appointment, and just send the tech to their
Yeah,
house.
for sure.
So it's like if he's leaving there with less than $500,
Yeah,
he's
it's a
losing
problem.
money
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, it's a
So
problem.
it's like you can only do that. You have to run the numbers,
But
and
yeah,
it has to make sense
absolutely.
at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So I think there's room to do it at all levels, and it's like I think that with any business, you run into that exact problem, and at the end of the day, if you want to scale the business, yes, you're going to have to charge higher prices to make the same amount of money, and everyone has to eat, like,
yeah.
you know.
No, you're absolutely right
So
about that. So, when I was working at other companies, there was, of course, that component where I'm just like, oh, when I do my own thing, I'll be able to charge, much less. And then I rapidly found out, like, oh, that's not the case. So, whereas my price book before was probably something more in line with like 2018. Well, now it's more in line with like 2022, 2023. So I've definitely uh, brought that up. And, I do present all the options. So, when I'm
yeah,
talking about going out and just doing the repair or whatever, these are customers that truly, I'm not trying to get them to finance nothing, and at the end of the day, um, but the majority of my tickets are, things where, uh, uh, they're the top option. I mean, some of the customers just want the top option. So I am fortunate in that regard. But yeah, I would just be hesitant to ever get to the point where I'm taking advantage. Now, as far as what you're saying with like scaling and seeing these increases in expenses, and yeah, definitely, I'm seeing that and adjusting, on the fly. So I mean, and right now, even with my price book, and I know this is not good, I'm closing 100% of my calls essentially.
yeah. So you're underpriced.
Exactly. No,
For
exactly.
sure.
But my
Yeah.
prices are low enough to where I can start to increase them. And at some point, I want to get to 80, which to me is probably still a little bit high. I probably want to float around like 75 or so, 70. But
Yeah.
but I just don't feel like I have the luxury now. At the same time, I am sort of just covered up in work, so maybe I just haven't had the time to really sit down and look at that. Now, as far as marketing go, I really don't pay for marketing. Um, it's pretty heavy word of mouth, and um, I guess I'll be I guess I'll be slow in 2 weeks, and that's when I'll sit down and look at things. And if it picks back up, then I'll you know have to put it off further. But yeah, the more I look at it, the more I realize like, okay, I am going to have to increase prices, especially for the future. You know, bringing people on, and I just can't. You know, I can't be the guy that thinks he's doing, and I'm not. I'm not doing anyone a favor, especially not me, by charging the lowest. Like I never want to be competing with the guys who are charging the lowest, because you're just competing to see who goes out of business the fastest. What I want to do is offer just high quality services for middle to upper middle of the road pricing. And as the future goes on, if I can use AI tools to scale down the number of non-productive employees that I need, I'll do it. If the shop I rent is like, a 1,500 square foot hole in the wall, like crumbling brick, and um, I'll do that. I don't care. Like, as I'll keep my overhead as low as possible to keep the prices down for the customer, while still being able to offer a higher level of service. And I feel like that's where I'm really fortunate to have started when I have, is because I have these tools where I can use AI to do these things. I do live in a world now where, more people are demanding work from home. So now, commercial real estate's a little bit lower, so I can take advantage of that. Um, and yeah, there are plenty of ways that I can start out keeping overhead low, whereas like a larger company I know can't make that shift, um, you know, back into it. Um, but yeah, the prices, you definitely you definitely want to leave room to increase them. Um,
Yeah. And I wouldn't be there's no rules, man. like you can be fluid with your pricing.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, if your hourly rate goes up or down this week or next week, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, exactly.
if our calendar is empty and I need to put jobs on the schedule to keep my guys busy and I'm closing at 50%, it's like, okay, maybe we lower things a little bit,
Yep,
still protect your margin,
for sure.
obviously. Like, you can't sell yourself out of business. You shouldn't be working for free just to stay busy.
Yep.
Like, that is
Yeah.
the beginning of the
Yeah,
end as
exactly.
far
Yeah.
as you burning out yourself,
Yeah.
your employees, in the business. Like, it's hard to come back from that
Right.
once you end up in that position.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll offer you some unsolicited advice, and feel free to disagree and say you're full of shit. That's totally fine. But when I hear someone say, I want to offer the lowest or competitive price but the highest quality service, those two things don't
Oh,
always
yeah,
go
for sure.
together.
For sure.
And that is a business that you're going to fight every day to keep afloat and keep alive. Now, if it's a mindset shift that you have to make around, and I'm not saying this is you, but like, generally, like, you're a business owner, dude, don't be allergic to money.
Right. Oh, I'm not.
Like, money is the oxygen
Yeah.
that your business needs to survive
Yeah.
and thrive. Now, if it's a matter of, well, I don't want to charge my customer more because I feel like I'm taking advantage of them or whatever, it's like, if the mindset shift is this, it can be, if I charge a higher price, how much higher of a quality service am I going to be able to deliver off
Right.
the back of that?
Yeah.
So there's a world where you can marry those two things together. And I don't think that it has to be at the customer's expense, or they suffer, whether it be a lower quality service, they're getting taken advantage of, sold a solution they don't need. I do think there is a world where someone that has the correct mindset that you do, which is like, the customer is first, we need to solve the problem, we don't need to do the most expensive thing all the time, like, that is the right way to run a business. You can also have that mindset and that approach and be like profitable and have the additional cash needed to scale or bring on more people. And, you know, how you do your compensation for your employees and stuff like that. And another thing you mentioned, where it's like, I want to attract the best of the best plumbers. Sometimes the best of the best plumbers will go to a business like yours because they're sick of doing an install every time when it's like they don't need it. I feel like I'm just, not doing what's best for the customer. There's a percentage of them that will have that mindset. There's also a percentage of the best plumbers that you're talking about that are like, dude, I just need to get paid.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
And if you want to keep those guys busy, and maybe I'm wrong, like, I don't run a plumbing business, but I talk to them and owners like yourself almost every day. And it's like, I would argue that it's the 80-20 there. The 20% of the best plumbers are the ones that are like, I just want to do, I love this work so much. Like, it gets my rocks off. I genuinely love plumbing and want to do the best job for the customer. And I get a kick and spiritual fulfillment out of leaving a house knowing I solved the problem for someone. That's like the 20%. The 80% is, dude, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm incredible at what I do, but I'm just going to go to the company that pays me the most.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got bills to pay. I got a family, dude. Like, yes, plumbing's my thing and I do a great job and I care about the customer, but I got,
But yeah. Yeah.
I got to eat too. So,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I think if you want to attract the best talent, you're going to have the most compelling payment structure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've thought about that, and I'm just trying to figure out a way. Cause again, I'm not at this point yet, but the next thing I really need to game out in that scenario is, how can I, increase prices, maybe even pay a little bit more commission to my techs, than other places are paying. So then I strike a balance. Cause again, if my needs are met, the needs of my family are met, then I'm fine. And I'm willing to make a little bit less money per truck if the guy's like solid and good. Like, for me, a decent, honest, capable plumber is rare. is very rare. I would be willing to pay more to attract them. And thankfully right now I'm not in the position to really, really start looking at that. When that time comes, I don't know. But yeah, that is another thing where, once I actually sit down and feed everything into the AI machine and look at everything and be like, okay, what it's saying to me makes sense, and do the math myself, and then hire an accountant and have them do the math and then tell me like, okay, yeah, everything's looking good. Then that's when I can really start looking at how naive I'm being, or maybe, maybe hopefully what I see is like, oh, you know what, maybe there might be something to this. I got to stop doing this, but maybe there's something over here. That's definitely going to be the thing I do when I have a little bit of free time. Because I mean, but I will straight tell, because oftentimes, sometimes I will go to a place and uh someone will say like, oh, well, someone told me they do this for $150, and I'm like, $150 is like one part of this. Like, I don't understand what you're really telling me here. And I'm just not going to do the work. And then another thing I do too is like, if I have a price, so for instance, for one guy, it was, changing a few hose bibs, doing some, like, replacing his expansion tank at his water heater and adding some shutoff valves. And my total ticket on that was about $1,800. And it was good quality materials, this, that, and the other. And he wanted to do it the next week. So I had a little bit of time. But he kind of balked at the price. And I said, well, sir, honestly, what I can do is I could get you an economy option together and use, maybe some lower quality materials and decrease the length of my warranty. But I could definitely do that to you to help work with you on the price. And he was like, absolutely not. So, there are definitely things where I'm very conscious of, it does cost me this much. I would, love to make, this particular margin, and I'm pretty close to it right now. But again, my overhead is low. And again, my prices are low now so that they can be a little higher in the future. Right. So that's sort of built in as well. Like, as the company scales, so will my prices. So I can't like go out the gate, because again, even running a high price book, my close rate's always been 78 to 85%. I'm just decent at it, you know. And typically in those companies, it was, like there was a 3-month run where, it was like it was a 90% close rate with a $1,500 average ticket. So that's pretty good. And that again was with a higher price book. So I know that I could definitely charge more right now. But again, I I want to. So, there's a difference between what I should be charging and what I am charging. I'm fully aware of that. Um, but I do want the room to move in that direction, so that by the time I get to where I should be charging, obviously, and that what that really means is I have more people and more expensive, and I need to charge this much money. I can justify it. It'd be easily justifiable, and it would be the truth of the matter is, like, I'm charging more because I have to,
Yeah.
versus I'm charging more because I can.
If you want to grow your business, you're going to have to raise the price.
Absolutely.
And when you go to scale, you're going to need the cash first.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is not like a chicken or the egg thing. It's like, dude, you need
the no,
money.
I know. So again,
Typically, it's like when you're going to go to scale the business, right? First, you're going to need the cash, the capital. Then you're going to need the customers. Then you're going to need the manpower. And then you're going to need the management. I need money. I need the oxygen. I need the fuel to pour into buying a new truck, hiring a new employee. Then I'm going to have to spend on the marketing to get the customers to keep that truck on the road and keep them busy. So that's the customer part. Now it's like, okay, we've got all these customers. We're spending this money. We're growing the business. I need more employees, more manpower. So now I need to fill that hole. And it's like, now all of a sudden I've got 6 employees. I need a manager to keep track of all of them so that I can keep going through it. Like those 4 bins, dude, like that is the cycle that you're going to, at one truck, at 3 trucks, at 6 trucks, at 10 trucks. It's going to be that revolving door of solving that problem in that order over and over and over and over and over. And
Yeah.
like, that's what it's going to take. So
Yeah, that was
raise the money first.
absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that I read before I started that was, I'm really glad I read it, was like, yeah, you don't have this overhead, but charge like you do. Because if you don't, you'll never get to the point of having X, Y, or Z.
If
So
you bring on the expense before you have the money, like you're going to start bleeding. And that is not, now you're working out of a hole instead of, you could quite literally raise your prices now to either A, meet or lower your capacity. And you know that if you're closing 100%, you're already,
well, I know it.
that is the,
No,
that is
yeah,
the top
exactly.
indicator of
Yep.
like, we need to
I know.
raise this.
Yep.
So as you keep going, you'll find the healthy balance of like, okay, so the goal now is to grow the company. I know that when we're stabilized, our close rate and our like capacity as far as what we can take on for work and how far booked out we are, that ratio, you'll know those two pieces of information. And you're also going to know like, okay, when we're aggressively trying to grow, or if it's just like steady growth over the course of a year, every other year, whatever, you'll know, okay, when we're growing, our close rate should look like this. And our capacity and the amount of empty space on the calendar or the amount of trucks that we have going out, like it should look like this. So you'll get the feel for that, and you'll keep that in mind. One other thing that I'll add on this, because we talked a lot about like price and stuff like that, is the middle ground is where businesses go to die. Either be the most expensive guy or the cheapest guy.
Right. Yeah.
Offer the cheap, dirty, quick solution, the Band-Aid solution, and just do volume, or be the most expensive guy, offer the premium white glove, full, like customer knows they're getting the best of the best.
Right.
And charge accordingly.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you get stuck in the middle, that is where like you're going to be competing with everybody else. Because even like you just said, like you're doing the right thing where it's not like, oh, customer says it's too expensive, drop the price. It's like, well, no, we can go with our economy version of this, where it's like, we're not down. When there's an issue around the money, the last thing that you want to negotiate on is like your margin, right? Now, most businesses don't have the equity in their brand or their reputation built up enough where they can negotiate on anything other than the price. Once you're an established business, you've been around for a little while, your name is generally well recognized. And also the thing that you're selling at that point, like plumbing is plumbing is plumbing. The difference and why you're charging more is the experience that the customer gets when they work with you. And that's the part that you negotiate on. And you're doing that, it sounds like already, where it's like, hey, we already have, if you want our recommended solution to be this, our economy option is this, but we're going to have to lower the materials and maybe drop our warranty by a little bit, where it's like, as long as you're not degrading your brand by saying, oh, he said no at 1,800, we'll fold and just do the thing at 1,500. And like, no,
yeah,
that's,
yeah, no, I don't do that at all. Because again, yeah, I don't want to give the impression that I'm out here repairing toilets for $75. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, there are definitely times of like, oh, well, like, I mean, even some of the big companies, there's some of the stuff that I'm more expensive on. But it's just because, again, like like a toilet repair doesn't take me very long. And, people will argue with me too about like, oh, well, that's only going to take you like 15 minutes. And I was like, look, the more I do this, the faster I get, because the better I get. I'm not going to charge less because I'm better at something. Like you want some guy, you want some guy coming in here. Would you feel better if it took someone an hour and a half to repair your toilet versus like 20 minutes? Like, would that make, and with the price was the same, would you feel better about that? So yeah, no, I understand wanting to want a premium product or service and get a pretty good price on it. I mean, that's where I'm trying to go for. I don't want, customers calling their friends being like, you're really going to be able to get one over on this guy. I want them to say, you know what? He did good work. He did what he said he was going to do. It was a pretty good price. There were definitely, he was maybe the second highest, or, he was in the middle, but it was a good price. And I feel like I was fairly treated. I don't want to be like, man, this guy's having a fire sale over here. You know what I mean? So yeah, my prices are not exceedingly low. And I've got some quotes outstanding now, where, the customers will tell me like, oh, this guy said he would do it for this much. I'm like, well, then use that guy. Like use that. I don't really understand his price, but yeah, you use that guy for sure. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely some room for growth. But again, I've left myself a little bit of room to increase pricing. But yeah, definitely not running around there,
Either be McDonald's
Right.
or Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Applebee's or Chili's is really brutal.
Right.
Dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, be the quick, efficient. Like, McDonald's is a well-oiled machine, and that is why the quality of their food, or the price that they charge, or the quickness, the experience that you're paying for when you go there, is what it is. The Texas Roadhouse is totally different, where it's like, these are premium ingredients. It's gonna be more of an experience when you come and dine in the restaurant, instead of just a quick 5-second drive through, lap around the building, in and out, microwave your shit, and you're on your way. Like, those two things are totally different. Do they satisfy a problem, and do both of them make a shitload of money with their target customers, the people that want that solution? Yes. It's the middle ground where it's like, average food at an average price with an average experience is kind of like hard.
Yeah.
It can still work, but it's like you're stuck in the middle, literally. It's like,
Yeah.
be the well-oiled, efficient machine, or be the like premium steakhouse, like higher tier.
Yeah. I definitely, once I feel like I'm in the ringer right now, because things kind of blew up out of nowhere. And I really haven't had time to look at everything, and check on all of that. But again, hopefully, truly first week of June, if it does get slow, I'll have a little bit of time to look at those things and adjust them as needed. And I'm sure I will. But like I said, right now I feel like I'm in the meat grinder. I'm no longer the cow, and I'm not yet the hamburger. I'm right in the middle. I'm just in the grinder right now. Because I did, these past couple of weeks, I did have to hire a guy, an extra guy. So, and I've looked, and I already have these quotes. Some of these quotes are already set, and I'm just like, man, damn it, because I wasn't pricing it as though I needed, but there's still margin in there.
Yep.
So yeah, it's not egregious, but definitely something I'm going to need to fine tune and tweak.
For sure.
Once I'm,
and make sure you take the time when you can to pull yourself out of the meat grinder, to like look at things and try your best to like see it from a bird's eye view. I've been there, dude. I totally understand. It is impossible to do when your day to day is like, you have your head in the sand and you're just in the business, running it, working it, like doing the plumbing, like you're in the person's house. You can't be thinking about, what's my price book? What's my margins? What has our close rate been at? Like, when you're just like, when you have a leaking faucet right in front of your face, you can't think about any of that shit.
Not.
So yeah, that's oftentimes the hardest part, is like when you're balls deep in the fucking work itself. It's like, it's hard to kind of find the time and mental bandwidth to even like look at all of this shit.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, and
I totally get it, bro. It's hard
for sure. And I've definitely, I've built a little bit, I've made a little bit of money the past couple of months, and I'm getting close to the point where I told myself, like, look, I'm just gonna kind of try to shut it down for about a week, get back to a 0 point, and that's the week I'm going to spend to readjust everything. And I know that price increases are going to be a part of that for sure. But like, sort of one of the mental hurdles is like, it's been tough for me to quote toilet repairs at $285, and there's other companies out there charging $525. So I'm like, okay, well, apparently I do have a little bit of room to increase those. I don't really feel a need to, because that's one of those things where in and out 15 minutes. But again, I can't charge less because I'm better.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what really gets me, so I this is the whole, thing that I'm sure we don't have time for, because I can go in circles about this stuff. Um, but yeah, there's definitely room for some increases in some of my products. Like even water heaters, if you would have told me 2 years ago when I was like, oh, I'm going to undercut everybody, that I would be charging like $2,200 for a water heater, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. But now that is kind of that's like a low cost leader, because I think the next lowest price that I've really heard is like 2,500. And then I've also heard like $6,000, which, whatever. So yeah, absolutely. There's a little bit of room to grow. And then, another thing I'll tell people sometimes too, is when they talk about how, Chuck, their plumber came out and did it for $75. I'm like, well, how much was gas back then? Like there's everything's just increased and increasing. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, again, like you were saying, as a business owner, you can't be allergic to money. Yeah, I have been more confident in raising some of my prices as well. So yeah, as time goes on,
The other issue with that is cheap prices attract cheap customers.
Right.
Because the truth is, dude, you have the mindset of like, I really want to help these people and give them an awesome experience. The guy that wants the cheapest price is like, dude, just get it done. I don't even care.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No,
like those aren't the people you want anyways.
Yeah, I think I may.
And
yeah, I think I may
totally
have.
Understand the pricing thing.
Right.
Like I remember, like, so I come from like the landscaping world, right? Working for $18 an hour and then starting my own business and running the numbers and being like, oh shit, I need to charge this person like $1,200
Right.
and this job's going to get done in a day.
Yeah.
That first time doing it, it was like my hands are shaking when I give them the invoice. Like, is it even legal to charge this amount of money? Right. And then there was other times where we're doing a project and it's like, dude, this is like 25 grand worth of work and materials and all this other stuff. And it's like, it is what it
Exactly,
is.
yeah.
Dude. You know what I mean? So I would, if I could send you to like off to do one thing, next time there's the opportunity. And I'm not saying you have to go through with this price, but if there's the next time that there's a situation where it makes sense, where there would be like an installation or a higher ticket thing, like I'm not saying like the next person you talk to, try to sell them the most expensive thing. In a situation where it is the proper or a good option, charge a price that is so fucking uncomfortable for you, you almost like are shaking in your boots telling the customer. If they don't gasp when you tell them the price, you're definitely not in the ballpark.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you charge that price at the end of the day, but just say it and see how the customer reacts. And you might be very surprised how that actually goes. They might be like, oh, okay. And you're like, what?
I've definitely,
I've been charging half of what I could have or should have been this whole time. And it's like, yeah, dude, because you were just scared to ask for more money. And it's like, okay, well, you do that one time and then you realize that people are like not only willing to, but happy to pay it, assuming that the experience and the quality of the work is good. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, all right, well, we're over that now. So it's like, just, yeah, I understand where you're coming from entirely. So that's from, I would, as an exercise of like shattering the limiting belief around it, if that is a thing, would be like, yeah, dude, charge, like, just say a price that makes the person be like, oh, I'm gonna have to think about that. Whether you actually charge that at the end of the day, like, whatever, but just get that experience to face the feeling of that and like sit in that uncomfortableness of charging a premium price and just like be okay with it and see how it goes. And you might be very surprised about the outcome.
No, then I'll just be angry because I could have been doing this for months now.
Yeah, probably. Probably.
Yeah, and yeah, even the first couple of months, the pricing and the stuff, I was like, oh, this is great. But now it's like, okay, no, well, now I have people, so it needs to be more. I mean, it just straight up needs to be more. And yeah, like you were saying, with someone that I know and have done work for in the past, like they needed some work done, like at the drop of a hat, and I was like, I cannot make it. I've got to send someone else out to go. And then I sent them the price, which was, double what it would have been with just me. And they were like, well, what's the, and I was like, I cannot make it. I was like, you as a regular customer and a friend and someone that's done me favors, like, yeah, for sure. I'd love to give you a break, but like, I got to pay this dude. Like, I got to pay his benefits. I got to, it costs money to send him out there. And yeah, you're right. And they're like, okay,
It is what it
yeah,
is.
exactly. And okay. I mean, it's not going to get done unless the people pay something, but, yeah, again, fully aware of it, and I do intend to do some tweaking to the price book once I have a solid week just to sit down and look at it.
Right on, man. Another thing I would check out is like subscription models.
Mhm.
I'm more familiar with that in like the HVAC sense, but I would imagine that plumbing is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And try to see if there's anybody in your area. If you're in Atlanta, dude, there's gotta be some of the bigger companies that are running a subscription
Oh,
model
sure.
where it's like a very low ticket, like $30 to $100 a month thing, where it's like it covers two repairs a year plus, a yearly diagnostic or,
Yeah.
whatever, something like that. The companies that are like crushing it right now that I know, have talked to, have seen, just like put up numbers that are like, oh shit. They're doing the marketing and sales installation machine, or they're doing subscription.
Yeah, I've sold subscriptions for other companies, and I've seen it work two ways at two different companies. One company was very good. I feel like that's something I would offer in the future, once I have like an established, like, people like, okay, well, I can trust this dude. Because if you go out to somebody and you sell them a subscription, and part of that subscription is an annual um, inspection, and that company is established and trusted, well, when that annual inspection comes around, you're like, hey, these shutoff valves are a little bit leaky. This expansion tank has failed. It's fine last time, but it's failed this time. This hose bid's leaking. People are typically like, okay, just do it all because they trust you. You've already been in their house. They have the subscription. They see the value of the subscription. Now, the other side to this is like I've worked at a company where they started with a subscription model, and they're calling their existing HVAC customers because now they have this free plumbing subscription with a free inspection, and people were super suspicious of me. Like, so I'd go out and be like, "Oh, hey, Miss So and So, what's going on today?" And she said, and a couple of the customers said this same thing. You called me. They were angry that I was there to do a free plumbing inspection because that just doesn't look good. But from the standpoint of you're an established company, you've built a reputation in the community, people trust you, and they know that when you do the inspection, you're actually speaking to them in their best interest. Like, you know, that it works. So that's definitely something I'm going to explore in the future. Because it's all about gaining trust. One guy, I told him, with your expansion tank, like, you definitely need a new expansion tank because the one you have is undersized. Um, and I said, you also want to replace this recirculating pump because it's not working. And, he complained about the price. And I said, well, you know what? We've got a couple weeks till you're back from your trip. I can order you the dumb pump without the Wi-Fi and stuff. And he's like, okay, fine. So, I decreased the cost the same as the cost difference, which he was happy. But I told him with the expansion tank, I was like, look, I know I talked to you about it before. You're going to be gone for 2 weeks. You always hear about people coming back and their water heater busted and there's water all over the floor. I said, turn your water heater down. And I would say, just shut the water off to your house, because with that failed expansion tank, if you let that water continue to heat, with these older tanks, it's going to crack. So now the guy's thinking like, oh, like, I've already done some work for him. He knows he can trust me. And now he's looking at these two things, which would have been like luxury items. And now he seriously wants to address them, because I'm sure they were on his mind, but it just took me coming into his house and doing a little bit of other work to gain his trust enough to where he reached out to me and said, hey, let's go ahead and do this other stuff. So yeah, that's where the subscription model to me really works. To me, I think you have to be experienced, because with the other company I was at, it was a new plumbing division. They said, hey, we've got this subscription, we've got these memberships, these customers are gonna love to see you. And I shit you not, my close rate on those was maybe 20%. And the other side of that coin was that company was definitely charging like, they were, it didn't make sense. And I told the owner of the company, I was like, look, you know, because he was obsessed that any job you do, your parts cost should be like 20% of the job. And I was like, well, on some of these things, it's like, like a water heater, the bill of goods for the water heater, pan, all the parts around is going to be about $1,200. So based on your logic, we're charging $6,200 for a water heater, but other companies view it as kind of, hey, a water heater is just one of those things, and we're doing 2,500, 3,200, 3,500, which to me is, fine, but 6,200 is like, whatever. So I said, so now we're coming into these people's homes. They didn't ask us to be there. We called them and like insinuated ourselves in their homes. I said, and now you just started this plumbing division. All we're doing is giving the customers a to-do list for the plumber that they already have. Because what you're telling me is that they've been your HVAC customer for 20 years. What that tells me is that they've had 20 years to find a plumber.
Yeah.
So now we're just giving them, and someone they already know and trust, just giving them a to-do list. And the plumber can look at this thing and be like, I'll do it for half and still be double what other companies are charging. So, that's kind of the thing for me too, is like, I've seen, when I'm saying what I think of as high prices, are, some of them just don't make sense. But yeah, with the subscription thing, it's something I'm considering, offer like a free tankless flush, or, one free fixture swap out if it's accessible within reason. We don't have to replace shutoff valves too, something like that. So like a free basic upgrade of some kind. But yeah, definitely in the future.
Right on, man. Cool. Well, dude, I gotta bounce, but this has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate you taking some time to come hang out and chop it up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, man. Likewise.
yeah, it was a pleasure, man.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Where can people find you? We'll put some links in the description if you've got, your website or any social media stuff you want us to tag down below.
Yeah,
We'll
so
put that there.
it's Turner Signature Plumbing. So the website is turnersignatureplumbing.com. Instagram is the same, as well as Facebook, and I can be contacted via any of those means. And yeah, that's about it.
Right on, man. Well, Eric, thank you so much.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, not a problem, man.
Cool.
Yep, see ya.